Tonight, we've got new information about a key voting group. According to an NBC Telemundo survey, Kamala Harris leads Trump among Latino voters, but it is the narrowest margin for a Democratic candidate in many years. Well, you're in luck. Steve Kornacki breaks it down for us.
This is what the trend now looks like. I think it clearly is something, because look at this. In 2020, Joe Biden, this is from the exit polls, beat Donald Trump by 33 points among Latino voters. That was an improvement relative to 16 and 12 for the Republicans. But now look at it 4 years later. Look where that 14 fits in with all of the other recent elections here. So, yes, much tighter than we're used to seeing. And again, this is a group, Latino voters, fast growing. About 1 in 6 voters almost going to be Latino in this election. We see a gender gap. We talk about this all the time in general. We see it with Hispanic voters. This race is tied among men. Women, Harris with a 26-point advantage. We see an age gap. Under 50 years old, this race is almost dead even. Harris by just 3 points over Trump. Over 50 years old, that's where Harris is the heart of her support.
For more, let's bring in Dan Nathan, co-founder of Risk Reversal, CNBC contributor and host of the On the Tape podcast. And Steve Liesman is here, CNBC senior economics reporter. Steve, break this down for us. What does this survey show you when it comes to what's motivating Latino voters?
The economy. Harris leads in so many different aspects of this poll. She leads on character. She leads on who would be best to address the Latino community, concerns of the Latino community. She leads on the abortion issue. Every other issue, the two that are the two most important issues to the Latino community, cost of living and the economy. Trump leads on those. He's +4 on the economy, +9 on inflation, as well as on border and immigration. And frankly, the Latino voter looks more like the average voter when it comes to securing the border.
Do those voters realize that his number one plan, mass deportation, would blow up the economy?
I don't know that. I don't think they do. And in fact, it's really hard to look at the Trump plan and see something that would reduce inflation. If you think about his tariff plan, if you think about the deportation of many workers, that would almost certainly raise wages and cause a huge inflation spiral in the country. Well,
Donald Trump has a 13-point lead over Kamala Harris when it comes to securing the border. This is my question. It goes right to what Steve said. Mass deportation crushes the economy. His other plan is we need money for security to build the wall. The wall doesn't help the country. What we need is an efficient processing system, because if you want the economy to grow, then we have to actually not have the labor shortage. We do fill these jobs, and once those jobs are filled, those people will be contributing to the economy. Do Democrats need to make this point more clear? Because it's stunning that Donald Trump could poll so well on the economy that he's offering no inflation solve for, and the border that the wall doesn't actually solve the problem.
Yeah, this goes back, though. You remember the caravans, the migrants, this is something
they disappeared the day after the midterms.
That's right. And so when I think about this, I mean, Kamala Harris has actually made some distinctions between the policies of Joe Biden and what she is tacking more towards the center. They're going to have more aggressive sort of asylum policies and that sort of thing. And when I think about just the main point here is that security, I think what you just said, and I think she's going to have tougher regulation in that regard. At least that's what she's signaling. And, the thing about immigration and how it relates to the economy, we have this massive demographic issue. We're doing a lot better than a lot of other developed countries when you think about Germany and you think about China in particular.
Nobody thinks about Germany when they're renting an apartment.
No doubt. I mean, but like what you just read, all of those issues where Trump is beating her on the economy and, inflation and the like here, that's across every voting bloc, if you think about it. And when I think about the fact that Latinos, think about where they are in a lot of very reliable sort of democratic sort of countries or states. So I just don't think it's that important.
But they're the fastest group when it comes to entrepreneurship in this country. And so this idea that Donald Trump just throws out there, I'm going to slash all regulation, is enticing for them. And VP Harris and Democrats can talk about that in more detail.
I think that's really important. And I will point out, Vice President Harris is the first candidate to talk, a Democratic candidate, talk about small business. Think about the number of people who work at small businesses, who rely on it, who shop there, and you say, okay, Hillary Clinton almost never used the word entrepreneurship, never talked about the free market. It's something like the Democrats have felt like they've had trouble saying those words. And the fact that Harris is saying it, I think, is a good thing.
She is, but small business owners also panic when they hear about the care economy. And here's why. Because we want to be a more inclusive economy. We want to give people jobs with dignity, right? We want to pay people more who have hourly jobs. We want to offer them benefits. We want to offer them unemployment. But when we do that, the care economy costs money. And so we have to make choices as a country. So should Kamala Harris say, in order to be this more inclusive economy where our small businesses will thrive and individuals can support themselves, guess what? We're not going to have $5 meals at restaurants, and your pizza isn't going to cost you $18. It might cost $28, because the vortex that we're in every day is going, all the data shows that we have a great economy, but why doesn't Kamala Harris poll better? It's because stuff's expensive. But if we explain to the American people this trade-off, maybe that would start to solve for that issue.
Yeah, I mean, the issue is, if you think about what the Republicans are offering, it's just, there's no safety net as that regard. I mean, when I think about what Fed Chair Powell just did and what he said 2 weeks ago when they lowered interest rates, they want to support employment, right? And so today, when you think about what he just said, they're going to be very measured about how they lower interest rates. If they start to see a fall off in employment, and I guess, Steve, this is something you track very closely, then they're going to go out and they're going to lower interest rates again. And they've done a very nice job of threading the needle as it relates to tamping down inflation. If you think about this, and unemployment at 4.3% is at the lowest levels of what came up from 3.6%. It's really at 40-year lows if you think about that. So there's a lot of things that are going on in the economy that I think are pretty good. And I think the administration, when they talk about capitalism for the middle class, this is something that you don't hear Republicans talk about. They don't put the word capitalism in too many things. So when I think about how she's tacked towards the center, she's coming at a lot of policies that Trump, at least that some people find pretty attractive right now. And
but people keep saying things. My life cost less when Donald Trump was in office. That doesn't make any sense. OK, yes, prices were lower, but they're not coming down if Donald Trump is the president again. And doesn't that argument have to, I mean, it's only going to get worse.
It's right. Prices are not going to come down. And I don't think there's any fix or explanation to the American public about inflation. I think all there is time. People have to get used to a new
it's greedflation.
Price level.
It's price gouging.
I've talked to many people about this issue. We cannot run a policy of bringing prices down, because that means if prices come down, your income comes down along with that. You do not want to have essentially deflation. The only cure for this is having a job, getting a raise, and potentially running a tight labor market so wages can rise along with productivity. I don't think there's an explanation to the American public. People are angry about this, and they say, who is at fault? And they say, the Biden-Harris team. For better or worse, if you think about it, what they did is they spent a lot of money ahead in the middle of the pandemic, and they did it for a good reason. You could say we were looking at unemployment rates that might have equaled the Great Depression. We avoided that and had pretty decent economic growth over this time period. And we paid a price. We paid a price in inflation. We paid through the pandemic. And we paid a price, by the way, with the Russian invasion of Ukraine.
Yes, but by every measure, we have a strong economy. But in less than 1 hour, we could potentially have a major port strike. This could derail some of the progress we have seen in the economy. How bad do you think this could be? Could this be sort of the October surprise?
I don't think it's going to be right away, but I think over time it would be bad. They're talking about something like costing the American economy $4 billion a day. But these are related issues, what we're just talking about. There is catch-up to be had in workers' wages. And I look back, the union has not had a raise since 2018. They would like a 77% raise. The company's offering 50%. So there is going to be some meeting in the middle. How quickly, we don't know. It's potentially costly over time and reigniting or rekindling some of the supply shocks we had to the economy.
Well, yeah, and just add that to the trade war, the tariffs that we have. And you just, the one thing about the Biden administration, they've been a friend of labor. So the idea that they could try to fix this sometime soon, I think you just used the term October surprise. It could be a real headwind to just some of the progress, I think, that the administration has made towards the industry. And then you think about manufacturing, too. That's the one other area. These tariffs are not particularly good for that. So when you think about the issues of, listen, if we have a strike, they're going to lay people off, right? And you're going to start to see the unemployment rate go higher than what the Fed suggested, 4.4% by the end of the year. But that may cause further rate cuts in the near term.